Hi, everybody in podcast land and also on YouTube. I'm James.
I'm David.
I'm Riley.
And we made you some content.
Open wide.
Finally, we are finally covering Bo Burnham's Inside.
Yeah.
Exciting.
All inside his body.
It's been out for a little while, but we all watched it, I think. Or did you watch it recently? I had watched it a while ago.
Yeah, I've seen it like 3 times at this point.
Yeah.
But it could not be ignored, so we're going to cover it today.
Yay.
Next week, if you're part of our convoy of listeners who watch ahead of time, we will be covering Black Widow. You know what, guys? We would have done it this week and got you that content on time, but I'm having a baby tomorrow, so see you later.
See you later.
Actually, when you're getting this, it'll have been yesterday.
That baby will be an old baby by then.
Old baby
Right.
getting a job.
Little slug.
Have it playing when they come out.
Okay.
Have it playing in the
Our
hospital.
theme song
Widow?
on loop. But this week, today, it's Bo Burnham's Inside all day. David, what are you giving this comedy special / performance art piece out of 10?
With Inside, Bo Burnham painfully and honestly leads us back through the depths of this once-in-a-lifetime shared depression and manages to make me laugh hard, feel in places I'd shut off, and think of things I'd rather avoid. An absolute triumph. 9.4 out of 10.
Woo! Rock and roll.
Oh my
This thing
gosh.
is fantastic.
I knew it.
It is excellent. I've been listening to it almost nonstop in the car. It's my 12 out of the top 20 of my Spotify
Oh, really?
are Bo Burnham things right now.
Damn.
I haven't done audio only Bo Burnham yet, but maybe I should.
It's pretty good.
And now a hater out of 10? over here?
Yeah, my heart is beating because I'm like, oh no, I knew I was going to be. I'm not a hater. Listen, Bo Burnham's Inside seems at times both unbearably pretentious and heart-achingly relatable, making it an ideal target for the very content algorithms he pretends to criticize. Who's the Jeffrey Bezos now?
Even woker than Bo Burnham, are you? Okay. You win the clout. Okay, you win the PC points.
I mean, it's tongue-in-cheek. I liked it. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, but I struggled with it because obviously there have been people who are like, this is a genius work, and there are other people who are like, I've seen this all before, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I'm right in the middle. I'm giving it a 7 because I don't really know what else to give it.
See, that's your problem. You prepare for this show and read other people's reviews. But me, I'm lazy.
What?
And I don't know how this was critically received at all.
I actually specifically avoided reviews of this. I only saw like Twitter takes and stuff. So that's it.
Inside is a sometimes funny, often bleak critique of all levels of 21st century living and serves as the quintessential historical document of the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on the average psyche. 8.5 out of 10. Fucking awesome.
It's so
I really think when people look back in 20 years, like, what was that like for people? They just watch this.
Yeah.
Done.
It's a perfect time capsule of what went on the last year.
Which is not to say,
Kind of.
I mean, there's lots of aspects of the pandemic that are not shown in this movie. He doesn't touch on having a loved one die or anything like that. But just for the average person who is like, I'm just stuck at home and it sucks.
He does touch on that, though. Guys, it's so subtle.
He touches on a lot of stuff, but I think I just...
On the Instagram song?
Yeah. He's talking about his mom dying.
I didn't know that.
Not actually, but about how in social media, everyone's so fake, but then there's moments of truth. Frame expands, goes past the Instagram because someone's being honest for a second.
I've been waiting to talk about that exact thing for so long.
We need to come back to
I'm
that.
so upset that you got to touch on that.
We'll come back to that for sure.
Right after this message from our sponsor, Manscaped and the Performance Package Kit. Listen, if you're 93% of our audience, you're a dude, and you need to shave that crotch with the Lawnmower waterproof trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks and cuts. Their crop preserver ball deodorant might appeal to the 7% of you who are female if you don't want to smell a stinky crotch near your face. This is so stupid. I have no idea what
Did you write this?
preferences are, the people who listen to this. Anyways, the package also comes with their Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer and their Shears 2.0 luxury nail kit. So head to manscaped.com/carpool20 today and get 20% off, plus free international shipping today, and you'll get their Shed travel bag today and a pair of their anti-chafing boxer briefs also today for a limited time today.
Today, wow, so that's service.
That's a lot of stuff. We're also brought to you by Private Internet Access VPN. PIA helps you hide your true IP address so that you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 10 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch if your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a Chrome extension if you're just in a room by yourself. So check it out at lmg.gg/carpoolcritics.
Did you know what that was a reference
David,
to?
Bezos.
You should edit that scream so it...
Yeah.
Yeah, cut.
No, I don't think we're doing a normal synopsis for this movie, but what do you got for us?
It's a bit of a summary, not really a synopsis, because, okay, here we go. Unable to leave his home, Bo writes, performs, films, and edits songs all by himself in a single room for months while his mental health deteriorates. He satirizes a wide variety of topics, including our insatiable need to both create and consume digital content, white comedians, colonialism and neoliberalism, white women's Instagrams, reaction videos, Jeff Bezos, sexting, cancel culture, aging, suicide and depression, game streamers, the internet as a whole, and other stuff, before finally deciding the special is done and exiting the room in a white outfit to audience applause. He immediately tries to go back inside, but the door is locked. Sort of like a synopsis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was weird because I think that like it's clearly a comedy, like it's a comedy special. And if you've seen Bo Burnham's other things, the format is him standing on a stage performing these songs with like little interludes and stuff. So in many ways it's very similar to that, but in other ways this is a lot more of a kind of story with a through line than his other works. Yeah. Other than 8th Grade, I guess, which is a straight up movie.
I think it's so much more than a comedy special. I went in super not excited about it. I put it on to fall asleep. I was like, whatever, comedy specials don't do it for me. I'll put it on, I'll like half pay attention.
Yeah.
But this is, I think it leans way more into the bleak, into the commentary, into the deconstruction of like our current climate a lot more than trying to be funny. Like, and there's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of good ones that make me laugh very hard. But I think comedy special doesn't really work for it, and it's like that's why there's the reason they're selling it as a comedy special, but I don't think it's the best descriptor.
It's definitely more of a performance art piece. I think not more. I think it changed in his mind. I think the reason there's a through line is twofold. Number one, it's in the context of creating this while under house arrest, essentially, right, in quarantine, where
self-imposed.
Yeah, where what I like about this and why it's so relatable is that he has the same access to resources that we all have, which is like, I'm FaceTiming my mom and I'm on the internet and I'm just reading comments on the internet. And that's why, as far as a through line, a lot of it has to do with things you're reading on the internet. The zeitgeist today is just, criticizing billionaires. Why do they exist? Reading outrage comments, reading people kind of one up each other for PC points on the internet, self-reflecting and trying to be the best version of you, not knowing where the line is. And that's all throughout the movie. It is an attack on different strata of society, but because it goes through all of society, it is like this integrated whole, I feel.
Yeah.
But then the second aspect of the special is that after the intermission, it goes like way darker and it's way less funny. And I think, he just says it to us in the special, which is, I should be done by now, but if I stop, then I'll have nothing to do, and then I'll kill myself. So this was supposed to be a comedy special, but now it's just the thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you see the content get so much darker as it goes. It normally wouldn't have made the cut. It would have been edited out. Somebody would have stopped him.
Yeah.
Now it's like, this is what this thing is. So if your expectations were a comedy special, maybe you don't like the second half as much. But if you like the historical document of the experience of the pandemic, then it's great.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's just such a success is that he is cataloging his real experience while he's also creating content. And I think that authenticity of the suffering he was going through really helps make it feel more real, more authentic. And so even though there's stuff where he's undercutting the seriousness with a joke, like the all-time low song where he's like being very real to the camera and then it cuts to a song and it's about how fucking terrible he feels.
Yeah.
And it kind of undercuts the seriousness. The overall arc really feels like we're really delving into his psyche.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword though, because you have between songs these interstitials. They're throughout the movie, but I think they kind of increase in frequency and length, where it's just now I'm setting up the camera and I'm sitting down and I'm doing. You think he's launching into a song and then cut, do it again, and so it slows the pace of the whole special down a lot, but it does give it this other layer. It's kind of like this meta layer.
Yeah. And like the meta aspect, I think, is something that has made this more interesting the more you kind of like return and think about it. Like you pointed out that his mental health kind of deteriorates over the course of this, and he's like showing you that. But at the same time, the thing that I referenced in my slogan was that like it's also sort of pretentious to film yourself supposedly struggling with mental health in this way while also creating content and being very successful at it, but then the moment that you think about the fact that that's kind of pretentious, you're like, wait, is that kind of the point?
Yeah.
Is the point of watching this and thinking about it that it's so genuine to the point of being pretentious, and that's a facade because you're actually creating this content? Like,
But you don't know. You're saying one part of that argument is that he's successful at creating the content. He doesn't know that. He has been successful in the past. He doesn't know it's going to be knocked out of the park this time.
yeah, but like Netflix is paying him to do it, so I think on a certain level, like I'm not.
But no,
sorry,
but I
I'm
think
not trying to come out.
they bought it off of him. I don't think they paid him to do it.
But he also
Are you sure?
I don't know.
He also
We can
says
look it up.
during it, when it gets really dark near the end, where he's like, I'm just talking to this camera and I don't even know if anyone's going to see it. And if they never see it, then I'm talking to myself.
Yeah, but I think that, I guess that does depend on whether he made it and then sold it to Netflix or whether Netflix bought it. I thought that Netflix whether Netflix paid for it from the get-go. I thought because his catalog was already on Netflix, I thought they were like, Bo Burnham, make a special, you know?
Yeah.
And he might be saying like, maybe no one will see that if it ends up being really weird and stupid, but like, that's not Netflix's deal. Do you know? Did you?
I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't really change that much because, like, you could say that of all self-reflective art, that it's like, well, it's fake because they're self-reflecting for a reason, and it's like, it's just up to you how much cynicism you're bringing in.
Well,
Yeah.
it's true. And like for a YouTube vlogger or something, that's always a question where it's like, are we seeing a carefully crafted personality? Are we getting the genuine person here?
Do you ask yourself that during this?
Well, I'm saying you ask yourself that when you're watching like YouTube vloggers, but this special makes you ask it even more or ask additional questions because the point that he's making in a lot of points in this thing is about being genuine and about the human experience and like whether you can trust people. And yeah, so I feel like that is both a negative for me and a positive in the sense that like while I'm watching it, I can't fully engage with it because I'm like, this seems kind of pretentious, and it also seems like something I would try to do.
Yeah. Well, for sure that.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I could put myself into that.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
I think that's the relatable part of it, where like anybody who's like sort of in a creative thing like we watch this and we're like, this, I could see, this is me in another life maybe, or later in my life or earlier in my life. Like I can see me doing something like this.
Well,
so
when you spend your
that's
whole
relatable.
life as a performance artist, and if you're an extrovert and you don't get to fill those holes,
Yeah.
that's why I love. There's a character I think in this show, which is the camera. There's two very intentional shots, one at the beginning and one near the end, where we push into the lens, right? The camera I guess he has two cameras. It's pushing into the lens. It's like the only thing in the room is this lens, but it's not like a neutral, objective party. It kind of is. It's just an inanimate object. It's just a camera sitting there, but it's so ominous, and it kind of just represents the weight of the entire audience and all the expectations. And is this going to be good? But it gives you no feedback. It's just this black hole you pour your energy into.
See, but this is what's so funny. Like I feel like people can watch this and feel that what you're saying, where it's like, oh, there's that anxiety of whether it's going to be good and all that stuff. But then I think that other people can watch it and be like, this is a Netflix special. Like it's Bo Burnham. He's very successful. People are going to watch this and talk about it no matter what. Even
no, I don't think
no
so.
matter what.
I don't think so.
totally
And
Not no matter
No,
what, man. I
that's-
never even heard of Bo Burnham before this,
Yeah.
other than I knew that he directed 8th grade, but I
this
didn't know
is
who he
such a
was.
way
You guys-
bigger thing
You
than
guys
it
are out of
was.
the loop though.
No, but
Yeah.
this is such a bigger thing than if he had released like a regular special. Like this
Oh, sure.
transcends, and it's like just because some people would have seen
no.
it doesn't mean that it's like
I'm
it
not
erases
comparing
it.
this. I'm not comparing
Yeah.
what we got to like
Yeah.
a standard special that he might release.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
comparing what we got to like another version of Inside that's like worse.
Yeah. I think to me where you and I are differing is you think that he's trying to come across as like genuine. I think I can't remember how
No,
you said it before. I think the whole point he's trying to poke fun at himself more than
Yeah.
anything.
For sure.
And so to me, yeah, the fact that he's the self-referential stuff, it's part of the like going into his own psyche. It's all part of this
Yeah.
big cycle in. So I just don't understand why you think that's like disingenuous, or you don't think that
I'm saying
it
that-
works or adds to it.
I'm saying that it's almost it's clear that it's intentional, that it is a little disingenuous, and that's kind of the point.
Yes.
So that's why I'm like, it's a negative, but then it's a positive when I think about it. But then the fact that that's a positive, and he knew that it would probably be a positive, brings it back to a negative. So I feel like it's part of why I can't give it like a 9 or above, is because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm not sure. I can't be certain of the author's intent. And in some ways, that's a positive because it's like death of the author, it doesn't really matter what he was intending, but the work that he created, we're talking about it now, and that's good.
Yeah.
But on another level, what if he was just being pretentious about it? What if he
gives us some clues.
What if people are diving so deep into this and seeing all of this depth to something that doesn't actually have that much depth? Because that's another one of my criticisms, and I feel like we've praised this enough. I feel like I'm gonna be the hater here. Okay,
Go for it.
Another one of my criticisms is that he doesn't dive, like it's a broad and shallow thing instead of a deep dive on one thing or a few things. It's like the list of topics that I mentioned in the summary. There's so much that he talks about, so wide ranging across all of culture, and as you say, James, it's kind of an attempt to like snapshot people's what humanity is like during this pandemic. Everyone's like locked inside and stuff. But I think that the end result of that is that he makes kind of like funny references to things, but then doesn't really dive deep onto what to do about them or like his actual opinion. Like we don't know what he actually thinks.
I disagree there. I think that you're kind of approaching it as if each individual song is the theme. It's not. It's him at the center of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important, is the human experience at the center of all these things converging together and what that means for us as individuals.
That's a good point.
And I think that like that's the theme, is like the human experience of the 21st century through this, not like neoliberalism, not like white influencers, not that. Like those things are all obviously touched on, and I agree. Mm-hmm. They don't go super in depth. But I think it's all centered around this idea of like this depression that we all have. And like we are all affected by all these things, and it's all part of this big vortex of suffering that we've shared. And I think that's why it works for me. Is like the theme is like Bo Burnham's suffering.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I feel like we should keep that in mind as we go forward in this podcast, because I feel like that is the reason why it's not resonating with me so much, is because that's what I crave in content, right? Like I'm craving him to say something about these issues that he's criticizing. Like it's super easy to, say, as much as I love the Jeffrey Bezos bits, all the Jeffrey Bezos bits, I love them so much. He's just singing Jeffrey Bezos repeatedly and saying, "You did it, congratulations, you could do it." But as much as I love that, and I think that's actually one of the few times that I laugh out loud, because we talked about it not being a comedy special. I think I laughed out loud maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
But the Jeff Bezos ones is one of those times that I like died, because I was like, that's so funny.
Especially when it cuts back and he's wearing like that Geely suit. Yeah.
Jeffrey Bezos.
You did it.
Congratulations.
Again, I kind of think that like I don't think it's necessarily intentional, but I think in his cataloging of his experience, how it works is like, we don't think about billionaires all the time. Like lots of people have
You do.
No, but like even me, who is someone who is vocal about my disdain for billionaires, I'm not thinking about them 24/7. And like my opinions aren't that well thought out. And it's like, oh, I like criticizing them because they make me mad because of shit in my own life that I'm failing at and I can have someone to blame on. And to me, the fact that it's kind of a cursory blow to Jeffrey Bezos is kind of significant. It indicates kind of that sort of thought process where he's like thinking about Jeff Bezos, but he's not like going in depth about how like Jeffrey Bezos is single-handedly ruining the planet. It's just like fucking Jeff Bezos.
I guess that's kind of what I'm saying, where it's like, that's funny. It's funny just to kind of do this sort of like throwaway comment or whatever, throwaway silly song at Jeff Bezos. But like the reason it's funny is because there's like embedded critiques of capitalism and our inability to properly tax billionaires and all this stuff. Like there's embedded critiques of those things, but we don't get into them. It's just kind of funny because it's a funny song about Jeff Bezos. And optimally, I think for me to give it more points and like rate it higher as like a genius work, it would have some level of that stuff as well. And in addition to just kind of having these sort of like,
I mean, there's a limit to what you can do in comedy songs.
It's true.
And he's also like, he's not a lecturer. But I think he's not a public figure thinker. He's not Sam Harris or something.
He's not, but like that's the thing, is that he, as you guys say, it's not really a comedy special. Like it's from, in my mind, this is less of a comedy special and more of a contemplative, artistic exploration of human psychology and the internet and what happened to those things during the pandemic. And so that's super interesting to me, you know? Like if it was just a comedy special, we probably wouldn't do it.
Definitely not.
But because it's not really a comedy special and I didn't laugh that much, I'm looking for these things, you know?
Okay.
It's fun to watch.
Do you think when he had the sock puppet on, is that the closest we get to his actual views on things? He gets the sock puppet to give an opinion on like the state of the world. This is how the world works.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And it's really, I guess you could say like Marxist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I viewed that more. I viewed that less as him being like, this is my like political affiliation or whatever, and more like an exploration of both sides, where, you know, he's playing both the oppressor and the oppressed.
Yeah.
The sock is the oppressed, and he's playing the oppressor, and so
kills me.
I like that because I like playing both sides.
That's what I was trying to figure out is he's using the sock puppet as some kind of mechanism. Is he using it to be like, here's Bo Burnham's actual views without Bo Burnham saying his actual views? The sock said it, not me. Is he doing that, or is he doing the sock just so that he can do that awesome punchline where he demonstrates power structures by abusing the sock into submission, or is it both?
I think it is a bit of both, and I think it's somewhere in between in the sense that like he's tried to like pre-apologize for what's about to happen before, being like, oh, I'm making this content, I'm important, I'm a white voice, and then like immediately, and like I find the self-awareness. It makes me be like, okay, well, he gets his role, he understands how he's good and bad in this thing. But then him being complicit to being an oppressor, I think, I don't know. It all it's hard to describe, but to me, like it just helps me understand how he sees himself in like a kind of a more subtle way. And I'm totally failing to make my point.
Well, he says it a couple times. He goes, there's lots of songs where he just says, you know, here's all these things I'm criticizing, but I found a way to do it where I'm the center of attention.
Yeah.
And like white guys should just shut up. But I don't want to do that. And he gets that out of the way.
Yeah, maybe I should. And then he's like stops for a second. He's like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
But during the reaction video, he says he's reacting to himself, right? It's like, I'm being pretentious here, and that's a thing that I do where I need everything I write to have some kind of deeper meaning. But then later he says, I actually do that. I get out in front of criticisms I think will be levied against me.
Yeah.
And so,
which doesn't, and then he's like, which doesn't justify it. There's no, like, being self-aware doesn't absolve anyone of anything he says.
But he's doing all of that within it. And so,
yeah,
I think some of the songs.
That's the thing.
Exactly. It's both. It's everything all of the time.
It's content.
But I think that's one of the successes for me is how he navigates the gray instead of like trying to provide an answer where like maybe it'd be more satisfying if you could leave it and be like, yep, Bo Burnham is this way, or like white people are this way, or this is that way. It's like, no. Like it's all so gray, and like we try and put things into big boxes, but like really there is no boxes. We're just all the ephemer.
You know what's really, really interesting is I don't even know what he's trying to say. I can interpret two different ways on my favorite song, Problematic.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I'm problematic.
Yeah, the 80s beat.
When you dressed up as Aladdin. It's so awesome. I love that song. But I want to ask you guys what you think he was saying. So that song opens with like, you just see Bo Burnham watching old footage of himself. I guess that's him kind of reflecting. I think I see that as a prelude to this song where he's working out in the video, even though he doesn't talk about working on yourself. I think that's the visual harmony to what he's saying. But then when you get to in the first verse, he talks about dressing up as Aladdin. Yeah. And then in the second verse, he goes, I've done a lot of self-reflecting since I started singing this song.
Yeah, it's a great
which is
line.
amazing because, I mean, on the one hand, it hints to like, yeah, it's a continuous improvement. We can always learn more and we can always do better. But is he actually hinting at a tendency to be so open to bettering oneself that you ultimately stand for nothing?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why he's like, you know, I didn't know that I lived to regret it. It's like, actually, it's a hollow. It's only because I got caught. You know, when people are like, you're not sorry, you're sorry you got caught. It's like, do you really see what you did as bad, or you just trying to get out ahead of the next thing you get canceled for?
Well, and that's, I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that's really interesting about the topics that he explores, which is that like everything is publicized now. Like with the internet, everything that you do is immediately online. I mean, unless you're like having a private conversation with somebody, but even that, maybe they'll tell somebody and then somebody will tweet about it. And it's like, there is very little chance that anything you do in your life now will not be on the internet in some form. Whether that's like tracking data of like the sites that you browse, and like somebody could get their hands on those. And And I feel like we used to live in this society where that was possible to have a private life. And so, he did these things as a kid before the internet. That would never come up. But now because there's footage.
Shitty.
Yeah.
I love that vaguely shitty. That is so perfect.
Yeah. And so like he's looking at this old footage of himself as a kid and like bringing up these things that he did because he knows that somebody else might do it. And so he has to get ahead of it in the same way that he tries to get ahead of the other stuff.
I think what I like about it too is that it's so much more authentic than someone posting online being like, I unconditionally agree with this PC idea because they're just trying to get ahead of it and apologize. Because he's alluding to the fact that he like doesn't really believe all of it, or like
he doesn't know, right?
He doesn't know. Yeah.
I just remembered that the Aladdin costume's in my mom's attic.
Yeah,
I'm gonna burn it. Wait, should I burn it?
Yeah.
Which is the right answer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the consensus of the internet.
And I find that so refreshing compared to most influencers that are just so unconditionally on the same agenda, where it's like, and it's a good agenda. Like I'm for the very like progressive agenda. That's great, but it doesn't feel as authentic. It's when you see someone post like, I'm this way, I'm that way. You're like, are you on a script? Do you really feel it? Like you maybe you do feel this way, but it feels like it's performative. And I found the special, to me, the special felt less performative in the sense that like he's saying these things for a reason and more an exploration of his anxiety around performativeness.
Sure. Yeah. And I feel like if there's one groundbreaking thing that the special did 100%, like you could argue that there are many groundbreaking aspects of it, but if there's one like thing that I would say is the most groundbreaking, it's that this is probably the first thing that I've seen that explicitly and with this level of, I don't want to say depth, but breadth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a word, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Addresses this topic of like being genuine and the internet and how it's affecting human psychology. I feel like so many people have private conversations about it, and there's tons of podcasts talking about it, and there's even, I've had lots of private conversations with people, but this is like the first work of art, I think, that has addressed what the internet is doing to our psychology in such a genuine, real, emotional way. I feel like we've had some like Netflix documentaries about how big tech giants are collecting our data, but that seems very like a scientific approach, and it's just like, look at the numbers. These numbers might be problematic, but this is such a raw look at the problematic thing that we've built here, and whether like that's going to be our downfall.
Well, it's so experiential, and I think that's the strength of it. Is like I felt like I was ferried through the last year again. Like I feel like Bo Burnham took me and was like, this is the journey you went on, and I think that might be a distinction of the people that I know that like it and the people that don't. Like the people that I know that don't really like it are kind of more mentally healthy. And like one of my best friends, he didn't find it funny at all. He was like, oh, I recognize that the songs are good, but I felt nothing about it. And he's like, he felt zero depression during COVID. He felt like very with it, very, very like fulfilled. Whereas like the people that are like loving it are the people that like kind of went into the depths. And the people that went deeper.
I've heard some people,
like, you know what I mean?
I heard some people, like including Bob Rose from the Thunderground podcast. He had to isolate. I think he had to move away from his family. Like didn't live with his partner and went to some other house for some reason. And he said it was the most emotional content he had seen about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And for me, the second half where it goes darker, I can kind of only apprehend because pandemic didn't impact me that much.
Not as hard,
I still got to come into the office every day.
Yeah. Very little changed about my day-to-day. I think most of our day-to-day lives, because we never really stopped coming into work. We had restrictions and stuff, but we didn't have like a quarantine lockdown where we couldn't leave our house.
Not for very long.
Like they had a lot of places in like the US.
My best friend probably has a workflow closer to Bo Burnham where, I'm going to decide to work today, and that means I go to a coffee shop and I read on my MacBook for a few hours, and then I go. But if that's what you were doing, and then that could no longer happen, that means you're just in your house.
Right.
It's not even having calls with people most days.
Yeah.
It's like I wake up, I sit on my laptop for business and pleasure, and then I go to bed.
I think I feel like I definitely am that guy then that you were saying, because I don't think I really experienced mental distress during the pandemic. I think it was distressing, I guess, but I never, my mental health didn't take a dive, and I know that a lot of people's did. So I can definitely see how it's like that's the beautiful thing about art that is willing to go into those depths. It can be so relatable to the people who experience that same thing, and it can be a comfort, even though to me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is kind of depressing. Not that I have any problem watching depressing content, but like, it doesn't speak to me, but it would speak to these people who have had, the struggles like that.
Not necessarily, because I have another friend who I was like, oh, this is probably right up his alley, and he struggled and was very isolated during the pandemic. And then he just said, yeah, I found it really depressing. Not cathartic, really, So
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing with art, though. And I feel like that itself is just a marker of the quality or the respect we should afford this work as a work of art, because it's making people talk, and it's clearly having a different effect on different people and making some people think about some things and other people think about other things. Like, that's what art is.
Well, that brings me to my next question about that song, about the problematic song. What is meant by the imagery of him on the cross? Does it mean that, hey, I'm willing to be crucified in full admission of my sins of the past? Or is it, I'm exalting myself to the status of Jesus because I'm so woke? And
I think that's
all the virtue signaling.
It's again both. I think it's like it's a tongue-in-cheek, like, haha, I'm above this because I'm self-aware of it, haha. But except self-awareness isn't enough.
And I guess that's, I mean, I'm not going to repeat myself, but that is one of the core problems with the whole thing, not with any like specific bit. It's like
you think it's a bug, not a feature.
I don't know. You asked this question of what is he intending here? Is he intending this or this? Yeah. And at any point in the special, if you ask anything about what he's intending, the question is always, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
And we can like try and interpret it in our own way and have supporting evidence for that. But at the end of the day, we can't know. And I feel like part of the reason for that is the self-awareness, is the like meta aspect of this, where we know that he knows that we're going to be thinking certain things when he does certain things.
Yeah. Okay, here's a part that I thought was authentic for sure.
Okay.
The part where he's sitting beside the clock that says 11:58, and he says, like,
30 bit.
He's talking about how, I wanted to finish this by the time I turned 30, and then there it is, the clock turns 30. Yeah. I figured there's no way he could have conceptualized that unless that was his true feeling.
I think I agree with you. That there's it seemed very likely to me that was genuine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's other parts like near the end where he's like crying. He like bends over in a chair and is like crying vigorously while I think the camera's focused on either it's pushing into the lens again or something like that. He's just shaking so much. I'm like, is that a fake cry?
It might be. I don't know though.
I have no idea. There's other parts where he's like getting angry and he's kind of smashing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, that could easily be real or not.
I know.
I think though, to me, and again, it's just like, it's a personal thing. And maybe that, like you said, it's one of the strengths of it. To me, the fact that we don't know is one of its greatest strengths. And like, it's going to be what makes people come back to it for years, trying to break it down and understand what was the intention. But it's like, to me, that speaks so much to my own mental state during the last year. Like, I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was feeling. I was just fucking moving and surviving. And to me, that's what that's what this speaks to, is like,
just keep swimming.
Just fucking keep swimming. And like Bo Burnham is just swimming as hard as he can.
That reminds me when he says, if I could kill myself for a year. That was amazing, actually.
I like that.
Especially because it's just, immediately preceded by like, don't kill yourself. Don't.
Yeah.
But if I could wake up in 18 months.
Yeah.
I like it too. And even like, there's a really good visual storytelling thing where it starts as him like giving that speech. And then it's like, it cuts to months later with him projecting that speech onto himself, but him looking so disinterested, like that doesn't even ring true to him anymore.
Yes. It's like when I was so privileged when I gave this speech, I didn't understand like how dark a place you can go.
Yep.
Let's keep talking about visual storytelling for a bit, because
so good.
There's actually quite a bit. Yes. He shows it off in one of the first real songs. I think it's the one where he says, "I made you some content," and he has the headlamp and he looks at the disco ball.
I love
it's like this demonstration where like, wow, strap yourselves in, because this guy can do a lot with a projector and a couple lights in a room.
Yeah, I loved that. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's such a great way to start off the whole thing. And especially just like, I made you some content. Like, the very first song that he's singing is acknowledging that, like, the conceit of, I made a thing and now it's on your screens and you're consuming it. I made a thing for you to consume. And like, that is usually unsaid. When you're watching content, the content doesn't reference the fact that you are consuming it.
Yeah.
And I think it was such a great way to introduce the concept of things being meta. And visually, it's
so good.
It's stimulating. I was like, that's cool.
He's a damn good editor, man.
Yeah.
I had to check to see if he edited 8th grade. There's a different editor's credit for that, but because he looks up he points his head upwards so that the headlamp points at the disco ball, but then when he brings the light off the disco ball and back down, he uses that as a wipe, as a transition to the next scene.
Yeah, it's so good. I think the editing is fantastic in it, and it moves at a great clip. And there's lots of editing jokes where like there'll be a loud noise and it cuts or something unexpected.
Yeah.
There won't be smooth transition.
Yeah.
There's a great one where I love this. I love when have you guys seen Too Many Cooks?
Oh,
Too Many Cooks. The experience of watching Too Many Cooks, and if you guys haven't seen this, you must watch this. It's my ringtone. The reason that it is great is because while you're watching it, you are trying to figure out, what am I watching? And it knows you're trying to do that, so it keeps changing like what you're watching so that you never get to figure out what the fuck you're looking at. And he does that a bit in this where for the first, 10 minutes or so, you're only looking at single camera, looking at him in the room. And then he starts the first real song. What's the one like...
Comedy?
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Just comedy?
Healing the world.
It's one of my favorites. So good.
Yes. He starts that off with the one camera just in his room, and then he does a thing where his head turns and he looks over his shoulder, so then it cuts to camera 2, still in the room, but then the next cut is B-roll. It's him doing like a skit with totally different lighting, and he set it up and filmed this beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, oh, now I know that I'm watching a special which there's like there's B-roll and there's skits and stuff, and then now I'm watching a music video, and I like how he didn't just start a song that was like a music video. He eased into it for the first song.
When he goes in and out of it too, like that's what's fun about it. Is it's like some of it's shot like theater where it's like the lighting is doing most of the work and just like crazy things are happening, and then there's sometimes where it's more the editing that's working and it's more skittish.
And it has harmony with what he's singing about. There's a song, I think you referenced it earlier, where it's just, the song is about him being in his room. He talks about, I was the kind of kid where I was just in my room all the time and I was doing whatever I could to get out of the room. And when he's performing that song in this special, he's just sitting cross-legged on the ground there's no lights or anything. And I thought, what goes into the decision? Did he just really like this take in practice and then he just used this take instead of doing all the setup? No, it's because what he's singing about in that song, he's singing about like, this is what my process looks like. So you might as well just look at my process. I just sit here and play stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, broken record, but like, are we seeing his process? Are we seeing a carefully constructed recreation of his process?
We don't know. Even in that other scene where he's like, does like a take that he doesn't like and he gets more and more frustrated and he like slaps his own leg or something like that. Up until that point, 100% believe it.
Really?
I've made YouTube videos in my living room where I look very happy and professional, but it took me so many takes. It was so fucking hot in there and I was so mad and I could only do it because my significant other was not at home because otherwise that's like another layer of anxiety.
Right.
But you're just back to performance mode. Like, you know.
Funny.
So, but then when he after that, he makes another mistake and he gets so mad that he starts like throwing mic stands and stuff. Then I was like, okay, is he hamming this up?
Yeah.
Right.
But you never know because that's the kind of thing you see on TV and you're like, oh, that's how an actor would look doing that.
Yeah.
But is that because that's what it looks like when you're acting, or because actors are so good that's actually how it does look in real life?
That's being a professional too. Like I've seen actors, or I've seen Linus do it where like I can see that his emotion that he's doing before a take is constructed. It's real, but he's choosing to go with that feeling so that I can heighten his energy and bring him to that place. And the same with acting. Like you're choosing to like amplify this thing so that you get a more authentic thing out of it. And I could see it kind of being something like that, where he's like, okay, I'm getting the take. I'm choosing to up the anger so that like the take can be more.
I'm just gonna push this a little harder than I would.
Yeah.
I think that at that point as well, I that was also one of the first times where I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's real, because I think that, I don't know, if it was me, I'd be like yelling or something. I'd be like, fuck, you know, like, and he just kind of like hits it and that's it. And so I'm like, okay, maybe that's just how Bo Burnham does things. I feel like knowing him or seeing footage of him like interacting as a normal human, just in a normal situation, maybe I'd be able to, maybe I wouldn't have this sort of like uncertainty about what's real and what's not. But I think that having that disconnect where he is this creator person on the other side of this camera and all I'm seeing is this, like, I know that what I'm seeing is prepared, you know, it's not like there's a conceit of genuineness, but I know that what I'm seeing is prepared on a certain level. Like at the very least, it's raw footage and certain takes were chosen. And so,
and that's where it's a feedback loop, because even if he didn't sit down and go, okay, in this segment, I'm going to spaz out and push this stuff over.
Yeah.
If he didn't do that, at the very least, he knows anytime I roll camera is a potential take.
Yeah.
So while he defines himself having a tantrum, well, this could be in the movie. This could be one of my selections.
That was a pretty good tantrum right there.
So
I feel like something that works against it is the length. I feel like if it was 40 minutes long and a YouTube video, I think that's a number. There are a number of times while I was watching this where I'm like, this is a YouTube video. Like he did it all himself. And I think that is very impressive. But I think that having that be like a quote unquote movie, a Netflix special, a film, whatever you.
It's not a film. It's
Well,
a
it has to be.
Netflix
I mean, it
special.
is a film.
it could only be on
It's not a
Netflix.
film.
It could only be on Netflix.
I guess you don't call them comedy specials films, but this is not a comedy special.
I'd say like you could define this as like quote unquote cinema,
but it
it's-
never would be in the
it's not-
theaters
yeah. It's
because
not
they would have
cinema.
edited it.
No, it's not cinema.
Like
yeah.
I said before, it was supposed to end, but he kept it going because he had nothing else to do. And
Wait.
Netflix is going to allow you to put that in. But
Wait,
like,
what's cinema though?
shut up.
That's a whole other
Yeah.
thing. We'll have to talk about that when we do Black Widow, though.
I want to keep sticking on the visuals though, because I
yes,
think like
let's get back to
honestly, like I think that carries a lot of the weight, especially some of the weaker songs. Like I don't like White Woman's Instagram that much because it's just a list of like white women posts.
Yes.
I'm like, you nailed it.
Yeah, but
you nailed it again.
the nailing of it is the best. A golden retriever and a flower crown. Amazing.
I feel like
I like
it
it.
spoke to you, James, because maybe you know more of these kind of basic white women.
Oh, yeah, you only
I feel like I
you only parlay with
I
the
know some. I
bands.
know some, but I don't know them like super well. So, and I also don't go on Instagram.
Yeah, but yeah, I had moments where I was like, that's Miranda. Sorry, Miranda.
Yeah. I thought the white. Just before you go on. I thought the white women's Instagram and the FaceTiming with my mom.
Yeah.
I thought were just kind of dated.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is commentary that somebody could have made in 2017.
For sure. Oh, my mom's so technologically impaired.
I think that-
Well, it's not. It is relevant because you are FaceTiming with your mom on a regular basis because you have nothing else to do in the pandemic. It's the only
I
way you
guess
can
so.
interact with her.
It was just kind of like old people don't know how to use computers.
But visually, I like that we were in portrait mode for that song.
Yeah,
And then when he sings about her putting her thumb over the camera,
Yeah.
we're seeing all black. So I like.
it's clever. Yeah.
I like that stuff.
It's clever.
Yeah.
I think my least favorite song, if you separate it from the visuals, is the unpaid intern one. It's just like a nothing song with the like looping feedback
Yeah.
of the commentary. I think it's great.
I think that the unpaid intern thing, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I read that as it was a throwaway. Like he didn't think that hard about it.
They shouldn't have
It
put
wa-
it. They
it
put
was
it on
just-
the album, and I was like, so I've listened to it. I'm like,
yeah.
skip.
What is it, like a minute long?
Skip 45 seconds.
Yeah, I like that format is
Yeah.
conducive to putting in these like 45-second
That's fair.
Jeffrey Bezos songs or
Yeah,
that
I
song and
love
then
it.
just cuts away from it, no context. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's almost like those. I like those little vignettes way better than the full songs.
Oh, I disagree. I think I like the full song.
Let's go back to White Woman's Instagram for a bit though.
Sure.
That must have been the most work out of anything.
Yeah, because he put it in a lot of different sets,
Yeah.
a lot of different looks.
Every one of those was like, that's a day.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
he ordered all that stuff.
Yeah, that's
set
A
all
day
that
to
up.
get that pumpkin candle shot.
Yeah, the raindrop.
His
The fishing
and
line.
I love how good he is as an actor. Like
Yeah.
the hairstyle is different. His face, like just how he smiles is different.
Yeah.
He could channel so many different women. It was
Yeah.
amazing. Like, oh, there's the Coachella type. There's like the tortured artist
Yeah.
type.
It's almost pathetic that this is something to praise, but I feel like the way that he sat on the chair with like the flannel thing
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
half off, and he was like
Nailed it.
Like we see his full, like his naked legs and stuff, and the shoulders off. I was just kind of like,
Yep.
I mean, he's a white guy. I'm assuming he's straight.
got
He
a-
has
I
a
think he's
girlfriend.
declared that he is heterosexual.
Yeah. Okay. So then I'm like, well, that takes some confidence to like, what do you call it? Display? No.
Sure.
Portray femininity in that way with your own body. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, nice.
What choice did he have?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an awesome song. It's so catchy. I sing it all the time. I'm obsessed. Me and my sister are
Well,
obsessed with it.
I think one of the things I like about it too, musically, is that it sounds like stock music.
Yeah.
Like in the best way that describes like these are stock like Instagram posts. This music is gonna be as like fucking as by the numbers as it can be.
Yeah.
It just literally sounds like stock music to me. In a way that's like maybe detrimental, but it also works thematically and has
Yeah.
unity. So I
That-
kind of like
And in
it.
that same vein, Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love how he is able to recreate these like genres.
Yeah.
Like he does 80s, he does this kind of like stock white woman.
Ragtime kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
he does,
visually-
like rap. Yeah.
In the same vein as what you're talking about visually, obviously a large part of that song is in like the square aspect ratio
1 by
that
1.
Instagram is, but he doesn't actually reveal that until he hits the chorus. It's in 16:9 until he gets to the chorus. And in the first shot that is 1 by 1, it's a shot, it's where he's blowing out the candle.
Yeah.
And so the sides are black. So you might not even notice.
Oh, that's so good.
And then when he actually says it hits the words Instagram, it's on a bright, high contrast image. And then you're like, boom, it's a 1 by 1.
Yeah.
So smart.
But as you alluded to earlier, of course, only time it stretches beyond 1 by 1 back to 16:9 is when he's talking about someone making an actual meaningful post, which is like you see glimpses on social media of like,
Let's
maybe,
talk about that. Yeah.
Maybe this is about connection. Maybe we can use this for something real.
Yeah.
And back to the cat
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
And then it compresses back in. He's
so
talking about
before we
fairy
started
lights.
Before we started the podcast, on that note, we talked a little bit. You mentioned the post about his mom dying or whatever.
Yep.
And you read that as genuine.
Well, I think it's not genuine that says his mom is dead, but more
Right.
genuine that like there are genuine things on here, but it's all sandwiched between all this bullshit.
Wait, I missed that. You're saying, his mom died?
I don't think
The
so.
speaker
Oh,
of
sorry,
the
the
song.
The speaker of the song.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were saying that his mom died during the
think so.
pandemic
I
or
don't
something. So that was because I read that as, oh man, he's giving like a nuanced portrayal of these white women Instagram people where they're just like posting, they're making these contrived situations for an Instagram post for content, but then they could also use it as like a genuine platform to like express themselves.
That's
and be
what
like,
we're saying.
right?
Occasionally.
But what I was,
Oh, yeah,
the way
yeah.
that I read it was maybe they are, on some level they are being genuine, but at the same time, the fact that they're posting it to Instagram and
Yeah.
not having that be a private process where like you talk to friends and family, the fact that you are finding this picture of your mom and posting on Instagram and
Yeah.
crafting the caption and sending it out there and seeing the responses, that makes it less genuine because it's like you are using a thing that has happened to you as content, as clout.
Yeah, maybe
chasing.
maybe that's the most scathing indictment of white women's Instagram then, where it's
Yeah.
maybe you're right. Maybe that was part of his intention is
Well,
to
I don't know,
criticize
because
them.
he expands. I feel like the expansion of the aspect ratio is
That's
showing
fair.
an expansion of the usage.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
so I don't think he would have that contention, but I hear what you're saying.
I think the only
used to do that
significance to
thing
that is that
myself.
Instagram now allows 16:9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I used to do that myself when I was in my 20s. By an anniversary of my father's death or something, I'd make like a tribute post. And now, no, I
Right.
don't need to do that anymore. But a lot of people increasingly feel like they should. It's just like the way we interact with our communities now, and they don't see it as grandstanding.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like there may be, and I think this is what was missing from his analysis. I think that he references the fact that like young people are using social media and how that's not a good idea. I watched another analysis where people are like, they brought up a bunch of statistics about social media and the effect that they're having on like children's health, and it's not good.
No.
Like the instances of depressive thoughts and all these things are like all these negative mental health markers go way up in groups that use social media versus not. And I feel like that was a part of the analysis that was missing, where it's like TikTok was the biggest social media trend of 2020, and it's just 2020. And it's just not in this, you know? And I feel like he talks about that's why I think the Instagram thing was just kind of like basic bitches, basic Starbucks women are like the bad guy of years past. Now it's just like you don't even think about them. Now you're thinking about
the bad
all these other
guys.
archetypes.
I don't think it's the bad guys.
Not the bad guys, but like an object of ridicule. Now it's like you don't even spend time to ridicule them now. Now it's like
Yeah, he mentioned Zoomers a couple times, but he never like.
did he say Zoomers?
Yeah, he does a couple times. Yeah,
The word Zoomer.
I believe so.
Oh, I missed it.
Funny. I think for me, when he kind of really does get into it, and it's weird because it's really fast and broad, but it's the kind of quiet song when he's like, oh, I don't know how to play the guitar, picks up the guitar.
Oh, that song haunts me.
Yeah, that funny feeling. And it's like kind of a list of all these things. But when he gets to the part about like having a disassociative disorder and like Googling derealization and not like hating what you find.
Did you
And
Google
Googled it,
derealization?
and I was
I've
like,
been meaning to.
I fucking hate what I
Oh,
found.
tell us.
I mean, I can't. It's weird.
I'm doing it right now.
It's just like kind of stepping outside your body and like not feeling like a human, like not feeling like a corporeal being. Like you're just like, you're having like it's not out of body experience. I mean, maybe read it.
Is it derealization is a mental state where you feel detached from your surroundings. People and object around you may seem unreal, even so you're aware that this altered state isn't normal. More than half of all people may have this disconnection from reality once in their lifetime. I kind of get that. I mean, obviously I haven't struggled with that regularly as a mental thing, but I think that I can relate to that feeling where maybe you're just so tired or you're so annoyed or you're so like disenfranchised or disenchanted with like your process of work and life and what's going on that you're just kind of like laying there and like things are happening around you and you're just like, I'm not part of this, I'm separate.
It's similar to almost when you try to comprehend like the size of the universe or like how Earth is like a grain of sand.
Yeah, it's like a mind blown sort of situation.
I think but
in a negative way.
Yeah, the closest I've been to derealization in my life is listening to that song. That Funny Feeling.
Oh, really?
It's great.
It's like to your earlier point about not being deep on any topic, but it's like we bring to all of this content our own knowledge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so all he has to do is be strumming this song and just say these keywords.
Yeah.
You know, he just says these keywords and you hear them with the music flavoring them with and then you're just like, oh fuck, this is bleak.
This song is my favorite part of the special.
It's so good.
I love it. Not only because of the fact that I think it's the deepest he gets. Maybe it's hypocritical, but like the fact that he kind of is referencing all of these phenomena in passing as he's singing brings up all these associations because it's less of a comedic song and more of a contemplative song, introspective song. And that for me, like thematically, in terms of meaning, that's the deepest. But it's also, in my mind, the best actual song on the whole friggin' thing.
It's a great song.
Because, I mean, I kind of wanted to talk about the music, but like his voice most of the time annoys me. And in this one, he just like calms down and he's not trying to sing with this Bo Burnham clear enunciation thing. He's just kind of like relaxed and he's dropping his G's and like feeling and stuff. And I'm like, okay, you seem like a real human. This seems genuine. I have no doubts about the constructed nature of this thing. I'm like, I love it.
Well, I think it's like you kind of said it where as he's kind of passing through all these things, again, it's just circling around his dissociation from all these things. And so like, it's almost like he's using them as trigger words to trigger your dissociation where you're like, oh yeah, Bugle's take on race, like female Colonel Sanders. And like, he goes through enough of them, like a gift shop at the gun range, a mass shooting at the mall.
I like that line.
And eventually you like kind of are just like there. And
what's the Bugle's take on race? What is that? A reference
like
to?
a newspaper, the Bugle?
No, Bugle. No, like the chip.
Right. Like, so he's talking about how earlier
Like
he talked about
corporate.
how brands need to be aligned and have to have like a stance on everything. And you have to, they're like part of your tribe and a brand has to be on the right side of history. And you're just talking
That's
about
also
fucking Chips Ahoy, things of racism.
It's like, as a brand, it's you just have to roll up your sleeves and do the work and sell Butterfingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a great.
Yeah.
That's a great
I think the line that got me, and like even I think I had like a cry in the car. I mean, I'm going through some stuff, so I cry easy right now. But like, that unapparent summer air in early fall, the quiet comprehending of the ending of it all.
Yeah,
that got me.
I think and he says something like you're saying the world's gonna end soon, but like it already has.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to take all these little statements and be like, well, fuck, he's right. We are dying.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know. They didn't know Rome was collapsing in the 50 years before it did.
Yeah.
Well, but you could feel it. And we do feel it. And it's awful right now. Damn it, we're done.
It's
but
over.
I mean, that's really just it's just because you're in a depressive state of mind. And if you want to be an optimist, you can read like a Steven Pinker book and be like, wow, the world's more equal than ever, actually.
Yeah.
And,
it's so funny. I mean, like, I feel like as the world gets better and wealth increases, particularly like the Western world is just like, it's like we call things first world and third world because like things are getting so good for us over here.
Academia doesn't use those terms anymore.
Yeah, sorry. It's out of date.
Preferred?
Cancel me. But
what are the preferred terms? I don't know.
Like developing.
Oh, developing
Okay,
and
sure.
developed?
Yeah.
We've done developing. It's over.
I don't know about developed, but developing, you don't say third world anymore.
The point being that as things get better, we have less actual pressing survival things to worry about.
Yeah.
So then we come up with these problems. It's like first world problems type of situation.
I feel like we have as many existential threats as ever. They're just not primary. Like there's not just food.
You don't need to walk down the street and worry about getting killed by a tiger or getting shot.
Now you have to worry about climate change and social media.
Yeah, exactly. It's like things that don't directly affect you right now, but may affect everybody and the whole planet later in the future. So it's like a lot of weight. And so mental health is decreasing as material conditions get better. And it's like a ironic situation. For sure.
Like the amount of meaning in our lives is inversely correlated. David is staring into the void now, guys.
No.
I'm just thinking about that line, the like 20,000 years of this, only 7 more to go.
Oh, that's a dark line.
I was like, oh no.
I was lying in bed last night trying to fall asleep, like thinking about, and that song was playing in my head. I was just like, there's that feeling again. Ooh.
The whole world at your fingertips.
That's the song. That funny feeling, the existential dread.
Yeah.
I think that there's a certain level on which talking about climate catastrophes and stuff is just not a good idea, because I feel like it's really contributing to the mental health decline, and I feel like there have been many, many markers. This isn't about climate change, but I just feel like you see here that someone's struggling with the idea that humanity is ending, but maybe it's not, like maybe we're going to figure things out. And I feel like there's that hope is also super, super important to hold on to. And,
you hope that, but then you realize the whole system, like whenever there's a decision to be made, the answer is always, well, what's going to make the most money for the people who have the most money?
Right.
That's what we're doing, guys.
That is the thing much more that Bo touches upon in this thing that speaks to me, where it's like, that's why I find the Jeff Bezos thing so hilarious, because he's just kind of referencing this like general anxiety about the trajectory of like unbridled capitalism. And it's not unbridled. We live in a social democracy or a liberal democracy, and they have regulations or whatever. But the fact that like we have failed really to equalize this like inequality that is just like getting worse all the time. I like that. I feel like that's valid as like a general anxiety, but there's not a cutoff point. It's not like 7 years from now, the billionaires will win and we'll be enslaved. It's like, but with the climate thing, it's like, I don't know. That's doom and gloom.
It's hard. It's one of those things that like will affect all of us. And it feels like we're so powerless as individuals to do it. And like, we're taught so much in our lives that we have control over our destiny. We have control over like our successes and our failures in life, and that we're responsible for them. But climate feels like it's like, it's not up to you. It's up to us.
Yeah. So let's go vote on it. Oh wait, the election's all about somebody's emails instead.
Yeah.
Fuck.
This seems like a justification for conservative individualistic ideology right here, guys. I don't know.
Unfortunately, people are too selfish.
Well, humans can't imagine how things scale outside themselves. I can think linearly, right? Like I know that if I do this one thing, the consequences are this. But I can't imagine, what if 1 million people do that one thing?
Right.
What if we all have this plastic container?
Yeah.
And we all throw it away? Then what happens?
Million plastic bottles.
And ideally, you could get 1 million people to all do something. And when that happens, it's awesome, Yeah. But I think that...
our incentives aren't aligned that way.
Well, I think that what contributes to the type of mental distress that Bo Burnham is dealing with, which is this sort of like overwhelming weight of all these things in the world, one of the potential treatments for that is to shrink your sphere of I don't know what you're worried about. Like you can't go around and have mental breakdowns all the time because you're worried that the oceans are going to dry up.
Yeah.
You have to sort your life out. Jordan Peterson.
You can only worry about the things over which you have influence.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, and what are we talking about now? This has gotten super abstract.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I think like that's part of the problem is that like we're put in a state of panic because we're more manageable that way. Where like corporations want to have us click on their websites, and so they want us to keep us in a state of panic or fear or anger or all these things, and like. There's lots of websites that exist just to get hate clicks and like get those retweets from people that are like, this is bullshit. But it's like, that's why that article fucking exists. And so I think like we are purposefully kept in a state of despair in order to like have us like be crushed by the weight of our own expectation of what we should be doing and the constant failing of it.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, but I want to make a clarification
Yes,
because I
please.
think a lot of people get this wrong. Is I hear a lot of people talk about like they want us, society,
You're
to
right.
do this, and I I disagree with any assertion that there is like this master agenda that is put on the populace. I think yes, there are elites, and elites make decisions for their own interests that impact the masses.
Yep.
But I think it is a plurality of elites with serving their own interests.
Yep.
I don't necessarily think that like Elon Musk wants the same thing as the German government.
Yeah, you're right.
Wants the same thing
Well,
as
and like even as individuals that aren't necessarily part of the quote unquote elite, like we're complicit to sharing these things too, and like we're complicit to our part of it. You're right. It's not a they versus like us. It's not.
But you're right. Like that one company is doing that one fucking weird shitty thing.
because they know exactly.
But
what
it's
they're
good
doing.
for them. But they're not like in cahoots with, with
this-
the WHO.
Yeah.
Like that's just
Well,
like
maybe.
man, I believe in incompetence way more than I believe in like a global
I
new
guess
world order.
I would maybe. I mean, my position on that is that like they might be in cahoots, but it's not like, man, we're gonna do this as a way to keep the peasants down.
Yeah.
I feel like they're just all pursuing their own goals, which kind of tend to align.
I do
you know?
think there
They
is.
can.
I think there
big
is a
people.
level where that's happening, but it's like just like the top 200 where they have conversations of like, how do we control them?
Yeah, and they
And
meet,
like not all of them, but I don't know. I think they're actively.
I think that
having
definitely happens with like
discussions.
big oil
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And
They
like
gotta
and those
have-
people talk to Coke.
yeah.
You know.
they gotta meet at like a stone monument wearing robes.
No, what's that place called? There's
The
that.
greater good.
What is that place called? There's like the like
Stonehenge?
Green Valley or something. There's like a Bohemian Garden, Bohemian something. There's like a place where these like Bilderberg group type people are supposed to go and party.
Oh, that's like part of
have
the,
orgies
like,
and shit.
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
the equivalent of
Yeah,
Epstein's
like
Island.
children's blood or
Like
some
Clinton's
shit.
been there a
Yeah,
ton of
yeah, yeah.
times. It's a real place.
Oh, okay.
Bohemian Grove, I think it's called.
Okay.
When we were talking about kind of the sense of dread, I feel like being so embedded in the news cycle as I am doing Tech Linked, I'm almost like, it almost makes me more optimistic about the direction of the internet, because I feel like the internet is still very new. And I think it is starting to mature, and it's going through these growing pains as we realize what it is. And Bo Burnham's song where he sings,
We haven't even talked about Welcome to the Internet.
yeah.
Oh my
so now we're
God.
talking about it. The
The
Welcome
best
to the
song.
Internet.
The best song.
He kind of like, he describes what the internet is now as like a little bit of everything all the time. You can see bad stuff and good stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of rewinds it and it says, it wasn't always like this, you know? There used to be just like travel blogs
A
and
few
like
short years ago,
recipes.
all it was.
Yeah, that's
Right
all it
before
was
the
there
towers
for.
fell.
And now it's kind of evolved into this
Yeah.
like chaotic mess.
Zuckerberg figured out how to monetize it.
Yeah. And I think that there's a contingent of people who want to keep it like completely free and unregulated. And I think that is a beautiful ideal. But I think that the chaos that we're seeing is going to manifest in more and more problematic things as we go.
Like 8chan.
8chan are like 13-year-olds having unfettered access to post whatever selfies they want to do, and like have other kids judge them and have them think about themselves in like a sexual way earlier than they should be. And
I really believe it's either my children will have way less involvement with phones and social media than we do,
yeah,
or they'll just die. It's like the world will, if it goes on the trajectory it is now, and in 20 years when my child is like our age, it's like the world's ending, children of men style, or they're like, you guys were fucked, like the way that we think of smoking today.
Yeah.
How could
Maybe.
you guys do this? It was so obvious and in your face.
Right. Yeah.
It's so untenable.
I think that's kind of what I'm saying. That's the trajectory that seems possible. I don't know about like more likely than unlikely, but it seems like there's a possibility that we could get to a place where, unfortunately, the internet does need to be regulated, and we decide that like, hey, 13-year-olds shouldn't be making Instagram accounts, and you know,
this is another example why China number one, because in China they're just like,
no.
nope, you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what? You can't even eat a banana on the stream anymore. Boom.
God.
See you later. Whereas here
No
we're
Winnie
just
the
like,
Pooh things.
are you sure, Mr. President? Because I had a lot of Facebook money for you here.
Yeah.
Well, what-
yeah.
To me, I feel like the biggest change that's going to happen is we're gonna have to reckon with the idea that social media is designed to be like dangerously addictive. Like it's like designed around human weakness and like our reward centers and all these things. And I wonder if some kind of regulation of that could change it, where like you're not allowed to design your social medias to be this addictive. Like it's so dangerous.
I think that's
it's a tool like anything else, but a
Yeah.
hammer doesn't convince you to use it more often.
Yeah, it doesn't give you a fucking jolt of sexual pleasure every time you hammer a nail.
Yeah, like dopamine. Yeah, I think that as more data comes out, because it's only really, I mean, social media hasn't really been around for that long. It's been like what, a decade?
Yeah,
I mean,
2000
more like two.
Facebook,
More like
yeah,
two.
almost 2 decades.
on MySpace before.
But they didn't have feeds and stuff.
I don't
back
know
then.
if
It was different.
MySpace counts, but
That-
like
that is
I'd say
social media.
Facebook is probably the first like instance
Modern,
of this
yeah.
kind of modern incarnation.
But
of it.
even it wasn't ad based until 2010. That's when they stopped being like a platform. They
Right.
gave up on being a platform.
So so that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like it hasn't even been that long since this problematic version of social media has existed, because I remember when it first came out, it was fine.
hanging
You
out
just
with
put
your
your
friends.
photos up there
Yeah.
and you comment on your friends' photos, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you're not like posting photos like tallying the likes. Like it's just like it was just a platform for you to like look at your friends' photos and stuff and have fun.
Well,
like
also-
Facebook existed to me in 2007 and 8 and onwards as only a place for my friends and I to go and like comment stupid things on each other and like have a 100 message long thread just like joking with each other, just being
but
stupid.
you just like you checked it a couple times a day.
Yeah.
Or once a day.
that was it.
But now, like, remember we used to over instant messaging write BRB? I'll be right back.
Yeah.
You never say that anymore because you're never gone because it's just in your pocket.
You're always there.
It's just in your pocket. Continuous partial
Damn,
attention.
James.
Fuck.
Shit.
It's not
I hate
good.
it. I hate it.
Okay, let's not turn this into old men.
Old men shout at
reminiscing
the
about
clouds.
about 10 years ago. Social media was
I had
better.
a technical question. This is totally off the rails. When he does a lot in this film, whatever it is, pushing into or pushing out, zooming in, zooming out. Is that a digital zoom where he's losing resolution, or did he have some kind of like mechanical?
It could be
zoom?
both. I didn't see that much stuff like on for equipment. I could see what camera it was, but I didn't see if he had like a mechanical gear. It's very possible he had a digital zoom or an optical zoom.
Would that have been a
But-
bulky? Because he had it was pretty small.
We
stuff.
we have one that's like, I don't know, like 3 inches by 2 inches.
I
That would
just-
do that.
I just assumed they were digital zooms.
Yeah, the
because-
camera can shoot 6K, so it
didn't-
could be a digital zoom. So.
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But he never really zooms in that far.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, it's probably just. a
Yeah, and
digital
if
zoom.
6K to like, you could zoom in all the way to 1080p and it would look sharp.
It
still.
adds a lot though when he just like adds like this really slow zoom. It's just kind of like, oh.
I love what's that song? I guess it's like All Eyes on Me when he picks up the camera and he's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
swinging it around. It's like it's visual storytelling of like you're coming with me, like it's on me.
Yeah.
and it's like a very emotional thing.
It was so emotional
Yeah.
because again, the character of the camera
Yeah.
that he's talking to, that's the part where he goes. It's just so intimate feeling, and I wondered if it felt intimate for him doing it as it did intimate for me as the audience member. He finally picked us up.
Yeah.
He picked the camera, this character in his room, up, and swung us around. I wonder if was he in a state where he felt like he was dancing with us, like
Yeah,
you know,
I don't
you know what I
know.
mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
abstract, but
yeah, I know. I
Maybe
hear
he
ya.
was in, he was so high on his own supply.
Yeah.
Well,
Not-
he
not
must-
his own supply, his brain. I don't know.
He doesn't open the windows. He just farts in there and just like, Bo Burnham farts.
Yeah,
But I wonder because that song is not like, what is that song?
yeah.
Right? You know, it's not a comedy song. It's not even like a critique. It's really just, it's like the culmination of the whole year
Yeah.
into this weird emotional swaying
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the songs to me that like rings as like kind of personal for him because he like he said in the movie it's like he had to stop performing because he was having like real panic attacks on stage and like they're documented like he had to stop performing because he was really fucked up.
Right.
And so to me that's like part of that journey of like him kind of grappling with it but not overcoming it but just like swimming through it.
Yeah.
And it works.
I
It works for
wanna
me.
ask you guys, because we're gonna wrap up soon, I think. Here, I want to ask you guys about the comedy of it. You guys, how funny did you find
The
it?
first time I watched it, I probably laughed out loud 6-7 times.
Okay.
But I've now watched it 3 times and I've listened to it a dozen times, and now I laugh a lot more.
Interesting.
Like, there's kind of like jokes that are unlocked, and like it's like I was like my original
Joke
criticism
unlocked.
was just like, oh, it doesn't feel that dense with humor, but then it's like, oh no, I just wasn't paying enough attention to it, and I became more and more aware of it.
I feel
Do
like
you watch this with subtitles?
yes. I watch everything with subtitles.
Yeah,
now.
I know, but it's weird that it's like it's when it's music.
Well, I feel like it's even more important with music because oftentimes you can't really tell what they're saying because they're like singing it in a weird
But he
way.
sings
or
so
whatever.
clearly.
He does, which is annoying because that's, I think, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is musical comedy as a thing. I feel like it's kind of over. I feel like
It's back, baby.
What are you talking about?
Listen. I feel like that is why I was kind of unimpressed by this because I'm like, Bo has, like his music production, the production of the actual tracks has, I mean, I can't remember like what his earlier stuff sounded like. I feel like he played
was
a lot of
flat
piano.
a lot though.
In this one?
No.
Before.
He got way better singing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like Bo does not sing with a singer's voice.
No.
When Bo sings,
The comedian voice.
it is Bo Burnham, the educated white male, sort of pretentious. He's enunciating everything he's singing, and it annoys me because when he is clearly trying to parody certain genres, I feel like it would really come across way better. I feel like it would sell it more to me if he was also trying to
Sing
alter his
like that
voice
genre.
in a way, that it feels like it's more in that genre because comedy is made up of many things, but one of the things that is central to comedy is setting up an expectation and then breaking it. And so when he sings as Bo right from the get-go, he's already broken the expectation that this is going to be any sort of genuine song. Well, I know from the very beginning that this is sarcastic, this is Bo being self-aware, and so it doesn't speak to me as much. Whereas I think that Zach Galifianakis started as a piano comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And when he sang, he's like this kind of unkempt guy. He's got like a raggly beard and seems depressed. That was his whole shtick. Zach would go up on a stage and have a stage piano there and be sitting there and being very slow, like starting the songs. And you're like, is this guy depressed?
Yeah.
What am I watching? Like, I almost feel sad for him. And then the lyrics he would start singing, it's not immediately apparent that it's a joke. And then he gets like a verse in and then the first joke hits and you're like, oh, what is this? And then he keeps singing for a while and then another joke and you're like, oh. And then by the end, you're like laughing along with it because you're like, I get it.
See, I just think that like that's the thing that you knew that you brought in with you that like isn't real. Like
What do you
like
mean?
like this idea of like having to change the voice to be funny. Like it's not like he does do that.
He does do it
have like
sometimes.
a setup that's different. Like think of this is how the world works. It's like the first verse. There's not really any jokes. It's just like haha, here's how the world works, and then it like unlocks a little bit of the humor, and then it changes, and then it unlocks a bit more of the joke, and then it. By the end of it, you realize it's a joke, which is so I just described what you just described.
So
Like,
the way that the world works works
Nice.
because the genre that he is parodying has that style of singing.
Yeah.
He's like, this is how the world works. It sounds like a happy children's song
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
enunciate everything, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, okay, that totally works. Same thing with...
What about Welcome to the Internet?
That works as well. That works as well.
He's doing a different voice and character in that song than the other ones.
Well, yes, and so I appreciated that. That's also one of my favorite songs. I feel like when he makes a choice to, and he does do it, and like I said in the funny feeling thing, he changes his voice as well for that, and that's why it's more effective. When he decides to do a voice for the song, then it's good. And I feel like when he doesn't decide to do a voice and he just is like, I'm Bo, constructing a song on my piano in my home.
I so strongly disagree with this. I think he does do that quite a bit. Like we can go through the list by song and be like,
I'd say he does
this
it
one
like-
is different. This one's
you know what?
different.
I bet
I'd say he does it in like 4 or 5 songs probably. Yeah.
I'd
think
say
it-
like
it-
half of them.
You know what? I
And, like,
bet
if not,
he-
the other ones work. Let's literally go through a list.
4 or 5 is almost half. There's 11 songs.
No, there's like 20, man.
Oh, you're fair enough.
I think
don't know.
that he probably has this discussion with himself often.
Yeah.
Because you take a song like, I think a quintessential example of what you're talking about is Healing the World Through Comedy, right?
Yeah.
That is, there's
That
a
one
lot
sorta
of
works too, I
There's
guess.
a lot of lyrics in that song, and this is not. There's other musicians like maybe Galifianakis, his act was more music based, and by saying music based, I mean like actually what he's playing plays into the act a lot more. Whereas when you could be like, this is like a more verbal comedy. It's dense with lyrics. You need to hear the punchline
Yeah,
and the
that's
study.
fair.
Because I never watched with the subtitles, and I feel like I missed very little of what he said
Yeah.
because he's so clear.
I agree. That's a good justification on his end for keeping that sort of clear enunciation. But it's also something that again, I think plays into my point of it doesn't emotionally affect me. It takes me out of it because I know that what he's really doing is telling stand-up jokes that you could just say. Like, other than Funny Feeling and a few of the other songs, Everything All the Time or whatever, you can't just like say that as jokes. But there are definitely some lyrics in many of the songs where you could just like read out the line and it would be a stand-up joke.
Yeah, that's literally every musical comedy thing ever.
No, it's not. I completely disagree. I think like Everything All the Time, you couldn't just read that out as a joke.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is you can't criticize some of the jokes for being jokes. Like, that's a silly criticism.
No. I'm not criticizing them for being jokes.
Yeah, you're criticizing them for like being translatable to stand-up.
No, yes, I'm criticizing a stand-up joke being put to music and that being put forward as a song. It's not a song. It's a stand-up joke that you put to music.
So you're saying that
You're
when you're
so diminishing of it, man. There's so much more to it than that.
What?
Like, you can't just take a joke and then put music to it and then it works. Like, you have to take that, like, fit it in lyrically. You have to make it all have like
there's
cohesiveness with this. Like, yeah, I just disagree with you that it's just like, oh, it's just stand-up jokes put into music.
This is not an attack.
It sounds like one.
This is a criticism of a very specific aspect of his musical comedy that I found diminished my experience of it. I think that there are some songs where this does not happen, and I think that those are the songs where things really, really work. And I think that if there was one of the things that kind of took me out of it a lot of the time was the fact that I know, was the fact that straight up just some of the lines in the songs, you could take them out of the song and read them, and that's a joke. But, and it really feels like when he's singing the song, that's what he did. He took a stand-up joke and put it to music. And I'm not saying that's shit.
Every musician comedy has that.
I'm not saying that that's ultimate complete shit and it's not even worth doing.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the best musical comedy to me is one that kind of like looks at the end song as like this cohesive thing that you have to like build together. And Funny Feeling is one of those where it's like, this is clearly something that he thought about how it would end up from the get-go. And I think that a lot of the time, what he does and what a lot of comedians do is they think of a funny thought, they write it down as a note, and then they kind of flesh it out into a joke, and they tell the joke, you know? And so what I think what it feels like here is that he did that, and then he's like, I'm going to make it a song, and then he like writes a little chord progression and then puts the thing that he wrote into the song. But when you start from like a cohesive point where you're like, this is going to be a song, I'm going to write a musical lick that makes me feel something, and then I'm going to kind of like feel out the lyrics and blah, blah, blah. That seems like what happened for Funny Feeling.
Like it's more integrated.
Yeah.
By way of analogy, like in the Luca episode, we talked about, does this movie need to be animated or could this be any other movie?
Yeah.
It's like similar to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to move on though, because I think you guys said it all. It's kind of boring.
I want to hear why you think that musical comedy is dead. Because I disagree.
Who else is doing musical comedy right now?
I mean, Flight of Conchords got signed again. Garfunkel and Oates. Garfunkel and Oates are still doing stuff.
Are they?
Yeah.
It's been a while since they were culturally relevant, though.
I mean, like it always comes. It comes in waves.
Dead is radical language. Sorry, I'll walk that back.
I mean, even just the fact that Bo Burnham is doing it. Like, this is one of the biggest comedy specials of the last 10 years.
I guess that was my point, though, that musical comedy has sort of diminished, and so then Bo Burnham comes out with this like musical comedy special. And it feels to me like a lot of the songs on it are basically just jokes that you could perform as stand-up jokes, but put to music. And so I was kind of like, this doesn't push forward the genre of musical comedy in the same way that Flight of the Conchords did, where we're like doing a genre top to bottom, where we like have the music and the vocal style and the lyrical style. It's all supporting this like premise that like this is a rap song or something. And I feel like with Bo, you're like, this isn't a real 80s pop song or something. This is Bo doing a bit on top of an 80s pop song beat.
I think that's totally fair, and I do agree. I think that like the musical production has never been a strength.
I took a big sigh of relief.
But I just think that it's like it doesn't have to, like, not all musical comedy. Like, Weird Al kind of sucks, but he's the best.
For sure.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's it's to me to be an absolutely like bomb success. Like you don't have to hit every aspect of it every time, or else it would all become like so homogenous anyway. And
Yeah.
so Bo Burnham does what Bo Burnham does really fucking well, and he's not overreaching. And I think it would be nice if he brought in like super epic producers to make it all his tracks fucking fire.
Yeah.
But then it's just something different.
Well, I think
and
the
this is like
tracks
a
are
really good personal expression of himself through and through.
I completely
And I think
agree.
the fact that he wrote, directed, edited, shot, did everything, it enhances this a lot because it's like it's Bo Burnham through and through. And maybe you don't necessarily like that.
Well, no,
but
I
I think to me that's like one of the greatest strengths of it.
I completely agree with everything you're saying here about it being like a genuine thing coming out of him and all that. I feel like I'm really trying to get a nuanced point across here where I acknowledge the value and the beauty of what he's doing.
You
here.
made your point. We got
I'm
it.
making a very
You
small
got it across.
criticism.
Okay, I wanted to ask guys about that part where he's going on that rant and he's saying that the real world is just this dramatic theater in service of the more real, more visceral virtual world.
I love it.
And you treat it like a coal mine where you just go down, you get the things you need, and then you come back for air to the real space. Was there any truth to that at all?
I think so.
And if so, what? Like, because I don't really buy it. I think
it's a caricature.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of my favorite bits. Like I love all the little stand-up bits in between the songs, and that's one of my favorite of those bits because it's not something that I'd really thought about before, and the idea that this real life, what we're doing now, really, literally what we're doing right now is using the real world in the way that he's describing as a staging area to create content to then put onto the digital world. The much more real.
But there's other truth to it too, because there's so many communities that thrive in digital spaces that only those communities, they can never find each other in the physical world. There's not enough of these people. It's like the long tail of whatever you're into, right?
I know that I've heard trans folks talking a lot about how for them, the digital world is more real for them than the real world because like they go out there and they get discriminated against. And
well, what about from the perspective of like, okay, you say something to me, and because it's not real time, because it's asynchronous. Let's say I'm in a Discord. Let's say it's chatting. It's back. It's instant messaging, not voice chat. Instant messaging. You say something to me. I get time to process that, scrutinize what I really want to say, and project a certain version of myself back to you. And maybe that takes me 5 minutes. Is that more real or less real than if we have a conversation face to face where just due to etiquette and normal human behavior, you must respond within 8 seconds or it's weird? Ooh. Which version of you is more real?
It really depends on what you mean by real, I guess.
How do you define real?
Derealization is happening.
That was a Morpheus impression.
Nice. Oh, nice. Really nice, James.
Thank you. Nobody got it, so it was great.
I would say that the scenario in which you have time to think about a response is not necessarily more real, but it may be more useful in a utilitarian sense in if you want to have a conversation and actually get somewhere.
I don't think Bo's talking about usefulness though.
No, he's not.
I think he's talking about like subjective
But I think that
experience.
the question of what's more real is kind of dumb. Like I don't want to answer that question.
To me, he was writing that from the perspective of his character, where it's like it's about his derealization and like totally disconnecting from the real world and plugging into the digital world. It's not. I don't think he's actually trying to be like this is the way it is. It's more this is the way I feel.
I think exactly.
He did say, you could tell from just the way it was delivered that it's like tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But it seemed to ring true in certain aspects, and that's why I wanted to attack it a little more.
I guess what I would say about the real thing is that I think that the digital world and the real world, for lack of a better term, is
the non-digital world.
The non-digital world, the world.
Yeah. No, non-digital.
Capital W are equally real. We're still interacting with other people in the real world when we interact with the digital world. It's just that the medium is different, and there are certain things about the medium that we need to be aware of. I feel like the medium of the internet as a way to communicate with other people has positives and negatives, dangers, boons. I think that so something like this, the special by Bo, is super important in our modern age where we are thinking about the pros and cons of these things, because obviously it allows us to talk to people across the world, but also allows us to talk to the people who are right next to us and get in arguments super easily, you know? And so, and misinterpret what somebody says because you can hear their inflection. And so, I think that they're equally real, but they are different, and we need to be aware of that if we're going to have a healthy way forward.
Consider this, okay? Ready Player One. Have you read it or seen it?
I've saw.
So imagine a very advanced virtual reality, and we have avatars, and I spend 20 hours a day in this reality.
Yeah.
And my avatar that I present to you guys can be very different from my embodied reality, right?
Right.
So let's say I present that way, like we have projected selves in real life. Like I could try to use big words all the time, like I do, to convince people that I'm smart.
And that would ostensibly prove that you're smart. You ostensibly is one of your favorite big words I've noticed.
Yeah.
Just saying, yeah.
Yeah, I also like orthogonal.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Osteoporosis.
It's in my starter pack, James starter pack.
I can see the word of the week in the writer's room that I wrote.
Oh, you wrote that.
You write that?
Absquatulate.
That's
which is
a word?
To leave abruptly.
Absquatulate?
That's
Continue,
That's
though.
what I do to my wife. So in real life and in virtual spaces, you can project a sense of self, but in real life, you only have a limited ability for that projection to be like uptaken by others, right? Like I can say, oh, I really would like to be seen as a very well-spoken person, but then in reality, I stutter and it takes me for a long time to get the words out, and then everyone's like, okay, you're kind of an idiot, or, you know what I mean? Whereas online, I could be like, I'm going to present myself as this very strong, 10-foot tall blue person,
Exactly.
and there's no way to poke holes that I'm not actually that person. To an extent, like your ability to project a certain sense of self, you have a certain ability to do that in real life. The extent to which you can do that is probably broader in virtual spaces, but it still does have a limit.
Yeah.
Like someone can try to make all these cogent arguments and be like, I want to be seen as a public intellectual online, but others will read it and the consensus will be, you're dumb.
No, we know who you really are. Yeah.
I wonder if that space between who you are and who you aspire to be, that like weird kind of blank space, is really good or bad for us.
Look at Stephen Hawking, right? Like his mind versus his body ravaged by Lou Gehrig's disease. I believe that's what he had. You don't judge a book by its cover. Don't be like, oh, this is a weak person who is unable.
But it's not even that though, where it's like let's say I want people to see me a certain way. I want people to see me as a fitness guru, pro gamer, whatever. And let's
say hypothetically. Those are 100%
I was trying to
real.
think of something that are things that I want to do, sure. But I don't want to be a fitness guru. Fuck that shit.
I don't know.
I want to be in shape. I want to be healthy. But
those who know you on the podcast are like, yeah, I hear David, he's just a soy boy. People who have the video running are like, okay, he could bench press.
Yeah. Could slam me. Yeah.
I wonder if that space that we create for ourselves, this kind of gap between like where we are, where we want to be, and like we are somewhere in the middle where like we're halfway between like what we're doing and what we want to be. But I wonder if this growing gap is just creating more space for us to feel like failures. Like it's creating more room for us to disassociate and to be further away from like our lives.
I agree with that because there's like an implication that what you truly are is inadequate. So therefore you have to try to project this other thing. It's like, why can't you just be comfortable and happy and content with what you are and how others see you?
Right. I think that it really comes down to what you value, and different people value different things when it comes to things like this. I feel like for some people, the ability to express yourself and present yourself in a certain way is extremely, extremely important because, like I mentioned trans folks earlier, obviously for them, it's extremely important to have their outer selves match their inner idea of what they are. And I think that for other people, it's like, I think that I have the privilege and we have the privilege to just be like, well, we're part of the norm. So it's like, we don't have to think about how we present ourselves that often, that much, And I think that when you talk about a digital world, as I said, I think that the conversation about whether it's real or not isn't super relevant. I think that what it really boils down to at the end of the day when you're talking about a digital world is who the person is, like, despite, if you take away any of the visual, real, material aspects of it. Like, if you are a mind exchanging thoughts with another mind, that is almost what's more important on the internet than in real life. And I think that's a benefit to the digital world. And an argument for why it could be more real, That was kind of rambling. Go ahead.
No, it was good stuff. I think that in this special, he touches on this more than once. It's not just that little vignette. I think that is what he's getting at with the final image of the film, which is when he's staring at that crack in the door. Can I exit it? The opening image of the film it's just the room, and then he enters the room, right? And at the end, he struggles, should I leave it? But when he does leave it, then he gets locked out, and then it's like he's on a set, and there's a studio audience.
Spotlight.
And then it like comes out Truman Show style, and he's watching himself. It's like, I think that harkens back to this discussion.
Yeah.
That was there are great visual moments in the film as we've said, but that last bit where he exits the room and it's like he's on a theater stage is great, just because he's like, I'm done. That's it. The special's finished. I'm leaving now. I'm leaving the space that I've been using as the staging area. And he walks out.
That's
and
not
it's
your
another
choice.
staging area.
Yeah.
He's still in the spotlight, literally.
The Matrix in the Matrix.
Yeah. And I hate the way that I sound talking about this. I'm like, it's so brilliant. He's such a genius.
That is a great thing. And
But it's good.
That song is a really good song too. How it does the callbacks to all the previous songs, or many of the previous songs too. Just very emotionally satisfying, like full circle.
I feel like that's something you don't even really notice maybe the first time around. I think like around halfway I noticed that he was repeating these musical motifs, and I was like, oh, nice, because it really, the more that I kind of reflected on it and I watched like parts of it again, I was like, there are distinct sections to this thing where he is like ruminating on this like topic, and the motif helps you along there where it makes you think back about the song that you just heard.
There's only two things for me in this that didn't quite hit. I already talked about the All Time Low song. I think it's just like, I get it. It's funny to like the shock moment when he's like singing an upbeat song about how shitty he feels.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think of like the game streaming thing? I just didn't find it that funny.
Yeah.
I like, what I like about it is it's a creative way for him to show us what is a day in the life of Bo Burnham right now. Because remember the summary like points that he gets at the end of that game stream
That's
is
fair.
I cried 4 times. You played piano, and you know, and
that's fair.
when he's playing piano, he's happy for a bit.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to crying.
Yeah,
And so that to me was right in line with what he told us in other parts of the show, where he's like, if I don't work on this, what do I have? You only have cry 4 times a day.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I liked the sort of, it's that, and it's very much also a criticism of this sort of like brand of game streamer who are just like so detached.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, so I guess this game does this. Oh, yeah, cool. Like they're so
Thanks for the tip. Thanks. Like,
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
giving him
throw
money.
this up.
yeah, exactly. Like they're so I don't even know what to call it. They're like dissociated to a certain extent, where they're just like they're playing through this game and they're not even really thinking deeply about anything. They're just reacting. And the same thing happens with like the reaction bit, where he's criticizing himself there and he's criticizing the medium, but he's also criticizing the idea that we need to like
Have someone commenting
react to someone's content and have that be content.
That's the same as that joke he makes. Where like, is it necessary that everyone have an opinion on everything? Can anyone shut the fuck up about anything
for an hour.
Anyone.
Any one person.
One.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good bit.
There's good bits.
And even just like, we've talked about the visuals, but like the lighting changes, the lighting cues he does, and the fact that he's controlling them like on the fly. I mean, like it's rehearsed takes and stuff.
Yeah, I'm turning 30. It was just like amazing what you can do with just holding a phone behind your back.
Yeah, and he just swings it. Like first time he does it, I was like, wait, what is that moving light? That's so cool. And I was like, oh, it's literally just his fucking phone.
Oh, was that his phone?
Yeah.
I thought it was like one of those handheld actual
Or like he'll have like the 3 lights ahead, and then like during part of the song there'll be 1 light, so the shadow hits one part of the wall and then it'll switch. Or he uses the projections like for sexting and stuff. He just uses the lights really creatively, and a lot of this movie just looks really good. Like it doesn't look cheap. Like it was.
Plus, you got the theater of the mind thing going on, which is, you know, like it's a radio term where, you know, I'm telling you a story just by voice, and you can see it all in your mind. You kind of afford him even more than he presents to you.
Yeah. I think that I really took for granted the fact that he did all of this himself. I feel like we're so used to seeing productions like this that have a whole crew. So,
but he had time.
He did have time.
Right? So
he did have time, but like that's a lot of. It takes a lot of time.
Dude, and Welcome to the Internet, where there's a part where he cuts to, now it's the low angle of his face, then it cuts to the side of his face.
Yeah.
And then when between all these cuts, when it goes back, you can't see any of those other cameras. So it's like he did. I don't know if he did the full song from each angle or what.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work.
I just mean like just from like a technical standpoint, framing yourself, having been in a situation where I like film a YouTube video of myself or whatever, and I set up the camera and everything. It's just a process to like make sure the focus is right and all that, like every single time. And how many shots are there in here where he's moving around and he has to make sure that it's good before, like you're looking at the camera, you're like, okay, I think this is going to be good. But then while you're doing what you're doing in the shot, you can't see what the camera sees. So you're just like hoping that it looks good.
There was 1 or 2 shots that I saw were like slightly out of focus, but it was like, it was pretty incredible that he got all of it.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess maybe he could just rewatch the clips right away.
the screen wiping bit, right?
That he could
No, that
have.
was supposed to be.
Yeah, I know.
He could have removed that. I didn't like that. I was like, this is a waste of time.
The intermission?
Well, it says intermission. I don't need like content intermission. Like if it says intermission on the screen, I can just pause it. I don't need there to be like him squeeging a window for 2 minutes.
No, you need the time to reflect, James.
I don't like that. Get that out of
I
there.
don't like it. Don't make me reflect.
What was the deal with that little clip where he's like a YouTuber telling you to subscribe and he has a knife?
Yeah!
That was awesome.
There's too much to talk about in this stupid thing. Yeah. I thought that was great.
funny.
Okay, so it's not quite the thing with like, it's not quite a Chekhov's gun, but it's the idea that you introduce this sort of like dangerous object or an object that has ramifications, and you expect that something's going to be done with it, and nothing happens with it. But I thought it was like an interesting, it was an interesting thing, not only because nothing happens with it and you have this expectation, that's just like him playing with you as the audience, but it's also sort of a commentary, I think, on like YouTubers and the sort of like, when they ask for support, they're like, thanks so much for watching my videos. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if you guys didn't watch me and like subscribe to my Patreon and blah, blah, blah. There's almost like an implicit threat.
It's that. I don't think it's the first one at all.
Oh, okay.
Because he's just like pointing it at the lens.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Fucking subscribe.
Yeah.
Do you guys find he kind of looks like PewDiePie a bit? Like a little bit?
Yeah, probably.
A little
Oh,
bit?
sure.
Probably
Yeah. Sort of the
There's a
square
look.
head.
Yeah. There's
I really like his
Large man, square head.
His hair is so dope, man. Like when it's long and he has that middle part and it's like flowy, it's so dope.
Yeah.
I wish I had that.
Well, all long hair is dope to a certain degree.
God, I wish I had
Not mine.
I wish I had the
you
talent
talking
that
about?
this man has.
Just like super
Oh,
straight,
no, you're right.
very
Mine
thin.
too. Mine too. I can't say that.
But your hair's thick though. You have a
Oh,
high
you're-
density
oh.
of thin hair.
Yeah. But the what happens is that it balls, and then at the bottom it flays out. So it's like it's like a lollipop situation. It's bad
Alright.
news.
I think we can close it up, but I just want to say this is a really inspiring piece in the sense that like the equipment he had to make this is like nothing. It's like a $3,000 camera. Like it's like a nice camera, but you could do it with almost the same for like a $500 camera. He uses an SM58 for some of the songs. He uses these mics for other ones, RE20s.
Cool.
And it's like for like a couple grand, he produced a huge Netflix special that is rocking the internet.
It's a massive accomplishment for
friggin'
sure.
incredible.
And I feel like I need to clarify that my score is more like the fact that it's a 7 says more about how it affected me than what it says about the actual work as like an objective piece of art that has value. I think that it has incredible value, particularly in the current cultural moment with the pandemic and all that stuff.
Well, good show, guys.
But it didn't. It didn't.
I like to
speak
think
I wish
that-
we had done this 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I wish. I like to think that Bo Burnham is hating the existence of this podcast about anyone talking about what he does. Just seems like
Now
someone
we
who'd be like,
He listens to these while masturbating.
Now we just need somebody to deconstruct this podcast about
Keever's.
Oh, I never got to talk about. I love how that sock is in that liminal space between.
Oh,
living
that's
and,
such a good joke.
And he's like, no, don't do. He like rips it off. Oh,
I like when he like lets him go, and he's like, "Are you gonna behave yourself?" Yes.
yes, what?
Look at me.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So good. Anyways, we can stay here for hours.
Oh, it's so good.
Next week we're gonna do Black Widow. After watching a movie like this, it's like, what's the point? You know?
of it.
Well,
Yes.
no.
What is
This is the
point?
first MCU movie in quite some time.
Bo Burnham. Yeah.
Yeah, Black Widow. You're right. It's gonna be
Black
sweet.
Widow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about Fast and the Furious. What's the point?
Yeah.
You know, this is gonna be
MCU is the future of cinema. Is cinema dead? Is this what we're looking forward to?
No,
and that's it.
Bo Burnham's keeping it alive.
Exactly.
It's gonna be awesome.
Capital C cinema. Well,
Bye.
I noticed there's like an hourglass on the cover behind her. I was like, is that supposed to be like the shape of her body?
No,
Is
it's
it-
the
yeah, I
shape
think
of-
so.
What does this mean?
Yeah,
No, what?
the icon represents her waist.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not the spider marking.
Yes,
That's definitely not.
Sexy
Doesn't look
girl
like a
is what it
spider.
means.
That's-
Sexy fight girl.
Are you guys being facetious? That's just the marking on a black.
You'll never
being-
know until next week. Bye-bye. Tweet at us at Carpool Critics. Email us hello@carpoolcritics.ca.
Love it.